He was 13 years old and he was being walked out of school in handcuffs made of shame. Not real handcuffs, something worse, the kind every other student could see, all because of a pair of boots that used to belong to his father. Stay with me because what happens 20 minutes later in that gymnasium is the reason this story is still being shared months later. Tyler Brooks had worn his father's old combat boots to school every single day since September. They were 3 sizes too big. He stuffed the toes with newspaper so they would fit. The leather was cracked and the laces were frayed and one heel was worn down almost flat. To anyone walking past him in the hallway, they probably looked like a strange fashion choice for an 8th grader in a small Ohio town. To Tyler, they were the only thing he had left that still smelled like his dad. Staff Sergeant Michael Brooks had been killed 11 months earlier during a deployment nobody in town liked to talk about in detail. Tyler's mother worked double shifts at the hospital just to keep the lights on. She never saw the boots. Tyler kept them hidden in his closet during the week and only wore them on days when the missing felt too heavy to carry alone. Principal Dana Whitfield ran Riverside Middle School the way she ran everything else in her life, with a checklist and 0 exceptions. The dress code was 3 pages long and she had written most of it herself. Closed-toe shoes only, no boots of any kind, no exceptions for sentiment, for grief, or for grief dressed up as a dress code violation. She had warned Tyler twice already that month. On the 3rd morning she stopped him in the hallway in front of a line of students waiting for the bell. She told him the boots were out of code and he needed to change or go home. Tyler tried to explain. He said the words quietly, the way kids do when they are terrified of crying in public. He said they were his dad's boots. He said his dad did not make it home. Principal Whitfield did not soften. She told him rules were rules and sentiment did not belong in a school hallway. She wrote him up for insubordination when he refused to remove them, and by lunchtime Tyler was sitting outside the front office with a suspension slip in his hand, waiting for his exhausted mother to leave work early and come get him. Word travels fast in a small town. By that evening half the parents on the football boosters group chat had heard some version of the story. A few teachers quietly disagreed with the punishment but nobody wanted to challenge Principal Whitfield directly. The story might have ended there. Another small injustice nobody had the energy to fix, if not for what was already scheduled to happen the following week. Riverside Middle School had for 3 years running hosted a Veterans Day assembly with a guest of honor from the Regional Army Command. This year the honor fell to Major General Robert Hale, a 2-star commander who rarely made school visits but had personally requested this one. Nobody at the school knew why. Principal Whitfield assumed it was routine and prepared her usual welcome speech about community and gratitude. Tyler was still serving his suspension when the assembly day arrived, but his mother, against her own better judgment, brought him anyway. She said he deserved to hear his father's name spoken in that gym, suspension or not. He wore the boots. Of course he wore the boots. General Hale walked onto that stage in full dress uniform, and the entire gymnasium rose to their feet without needing to be asked. He gave a short opening about service and sacrifice, the kind of remarks everyone expected. Then his eyes moved across the crowd and stopped on a 13-year-old boy sitting near the back, wearing boots that were clearly a decade too old and 3 sizes too big. The general stepped down off the stage. He walked the entire length of that gymnasium in front of 400 silent students and he knelt down in front of Tyler Brooks. He asked him one question. He asked where he got those boots. Tyler's voice shook as he said they belonged to his father, Staff Sergeant Michael Brooks. The general closed his eyes for a long moment. Then he told the entire room that he knew those boots personally, because he had watched Michael Brooks wear them the day he pulled 2 wounded soldiers out of a collapsed building under fire, one of whom was General Hale himself 20 years earlier, back when he was still a young captain. The gymnasium went completely silent. Principal Whitfield, standing near the stage with her prepared welcome notes still in her hand, did not move. General Hale stood, turned to face the entire student body, and said that the boy in front of him was not out of uniform. He said that boy was wearing the most honored uniform in that room, and any policy that could not see the difference between defiance and devotion needed to be rewritten before the next assembly. He then removed his own combat ribbon from his uniform jacket and pinned it to Tyler's shirt, right above his father's boots, and told him his father's courage was the reason he had lived long enough to become a general at all. There was not a dry eye in that gymnasium, and by that afternoon, Principal Whitfield had personally rewritten the dress code to include an exception for family military items worn with respect. Tyler still wears those boots today. Nobody at that school has ever questioned him again. Grief does not always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like a worn-out pair of boots that a boy refuses to take off, because taking them off would mean letting go of the last thing that still feels like home. If this story moved you, that boy's courage deserves to be seen by more than just one gymnasium in Ohio.